Hi, my name is Madeline Harper. I'm 38 years old, a children's therapist living in Asheville, North Carolina. I never thought I'd be sharing something like this publicly. I've always been more of a science-minded person, grounded in facts and psychology. But what happened to me changed everything. This is not just a story about a near-death experience. It's a warning, a divine message, something Jesus himself revealed to me, and it shattered everything I thought I knew about the so-called mark of the beast. What I saw on the other side will challenge what most of us have been taught. It's not about microchips or barcodes or anything you've seen in movies. It's much deeper, more deceptive, and it's already here, quietly shaping the hearts and minds of millions, even inside the church. If you're watching this, please listen closely. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and stay with me until the end. What I'm about to tell you could change your life and possibly save your soul. Who I am and how it all started. I was driving home after a long day of work. It was raining. Nothing dramatic, just a soft Carolina drizzle on a Thursday afternoon. I remember humming along to a song on the radio. My phone buzzed. A client had canceled their session. I sighed in relief. It meant I could finally get home early and cook dinner with my husband, Noah. But less than 5 minutes later, everything went black. I don't remember crashing. I only remember waking up in the ambulance, then again in the emergency room. Husband told me later that my heart had stopped for nearly 3 minutes after a sudden cardiac arrest. No warning signs. Just collapse. Doctors couldn't explain it. A freak event, they called it. Stress, genetics, maybe an undiagnosed condition. But deep down, I knew this wasn't random. Because during those 3 minutes, I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. And then, I saw everything. The moment. My heart stopped. The beeping monitors faded. The fluorescent hospital. Lights dissolved into a mist. And suddenly I was above my own body. I saw myself lying there on the gurney. Nurses rushing. A doctor yelling something I couldn't quite understand. My husband was outside the room, sobbing into his hands. I wanted to tell him I was okay, but I couldn't speak. I didn't feel fear, only a quiet, overwhelming calm, like floating in warm water under moonlight. Then something happened. I began rising higher, past the hospital, the town, into a realm I can barely describe. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. It was more real than anything I've ever experienced. That's when I saw him. A figure made of light, but not blinding. Eyes that seemed to hold galaxies, full of truth, love, and sorrow all at once. He didn't have to say his name. My soul recognized him instantly. Jesus. And then he spoke. Not with words, but straight into my spirit. Madeline, I need you to see what's coming. What many have misunderstood. The truth about the mark. His voice carried weight. Not fear, but urgency. If you're still watching, please stop for a second and comment below. Jesus, open my eyes to the truth. I believe with all my heart that many who write this will begin to discern things they never noticed before. What he showed me next, I'll never forget. As I hovered there, between two realms, I became aware of something I never imagined possible. I could feel not just my own emotions, but the emotions of those around me. I felt the fear of the nurse trying to stabilize my heartbeat. I felt the anguish of my husband, who was begging God not to let me go. I felt the confusion of my sister, who had just arrived at the ER, still in her work scrubs, thinking this was all some mistake. But I also felt a deep detachment, like I was being gently pulled away from the chaos, not in cruelty, but in mercy. I looked at myself, pale, motionless, hooked up to machines. And yet, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I knew that what I was seeing wasn't the end. And then, something shifted. The room began to blur like mist on a mirror. The hospital walls melted away into brilliant golden light, warm and alive. The kind of light that doesn't just shine, it loves. It wraps around you like a memory you didn't know you needed. Then, I heard his voice again. What you see now is only the beginning. I will show you what many have missed. At that moment, my surroundings changed completely, and I was no longer in the hospital. I was standing in a vast place, surrounded by visions of Earth. But it wasn't the Earth I knew. It was a world under deception. The people looked normal, smiling, working, worshiping, living. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. What he revealed next would flip everything I thought I knew upside down. He stood before me, radiant, not like the paintings or stained glass windows I had seen as a child. No, this was different. This was real. His presence didn't just fill the space. It became the space. His robe shimmered like woven light. His face, it's hard to describe. It was both familiar and beyond anything I'd ever seen. But it was his eyes that undid me. Eyes that didn't just look at me. They knew me. Every part, every fear, every hidden sin. Every prayer I whispered when I thought no one heard. And yet, in those eyes, there was no condemnation. Only love. Unfiltered. Holy. Fierce, I fell to my knees. I didn't even feel myself move. It was like my soul instinctively surrendered. But he reached out, gently lifted me up and said, "Madeline, my daughter, I did not bring you here to condemn you. I brought you here to show you what's coming. Because I love you. And I love them." He pointed, and suddenly I saw the earth. But not like a globe. It was alive, like a heartbeat. Cities glowing. Nations trembling. People unaware of what was creeping in. And then, he said something I'll never forget. They are waiting for the wrong thing. And because of that, they are being marked without even knowing it. A silence fell. Not an empty silence. A holy silence. And in that stillness, I saw the beginning of the deception. In a flash, the scene changed again. Jesus stood beside me as I looked down upon the earth. But this time, something was different. At first, everything seemed normal. Cities bustling, people laughing in cafes, attending church services, going to work, scrolling through phones. Life as usual. But then, I saw it, over people's heads, faint, like smoke, were marks. Some were glowing, others were almost invisible. They didn't look like numbers, barcodes, or implants. They looked like seals of allegiance. Some pulsed with light, others flickered with darkness. It wasn't about technology. It was about ownership. And I realized something that made my spirit tremble. Most of them had no idea they were marked. They weren't forced. They weren't injected. They had simply chosen by what they believed, by what they supported, by what they feared, by what they were willing to stay silent about. And Jesus, with a voice heavy with sorrow, said, "They are accepting the mark, not by coercion, but by conviction." I asked, "But Lord, don't they know? Aren't they waiting for something obvious? A chip? A law?" He shook his head. The greatest lie of the enemy is to make them wait for something obvious, while he marks them through the subtle. Friends, if you've made it this far, I need you to do something with me. Write in the comments below, Jesus, I refuse to be marked by deception. Let that be your declaration today. Speak it, type it, believe it. Because the battle isn't coming, it's already here. And the next thing he showed me revealed how even the church is being drawn into this lie. I stood frozen, watching these marks appear on people's spirits, not through force, but through agreement. Some accepted it through compromise, others through silence, and some by simply choosing comfort over conviction. That's when Jesus turned to me and said, with piercing clarity, "The mark is not about what goes into the hand, but what takes over the heart." He continued, "They've been taught to fear a device, but the real danger is deception. The mark is spiritual before it is ever physical. It begins with allegiance, to self, to the world, to lies dressed as light." I felt my knees buckle. My mind raced back to all the debates I had seen online, people arguing about chips, vaccines, implants. But no one was talking about the condition of the soul. No one was warning about the slow drift away from truth, dressed up as inclusion, comfort, tolerance, or success. He showed me pastors preaching messages without Jesus, churches filled with noise, lights, and crowds, but no repentance. Influencers calling evil good and good evil, all while being praised and promoted. And then I saw something that made my spirit grieve. A man praying with his hands lifted high, but with a mark glowing on his forehead. I cried, "Lord, how is that possible?" And he answered, "Because he praises me with his lips, but his heart belongs to another." Friends, the mark isn't coming someday. It's being formed now. And the only antidote is total surrender to the truth of Christ. If this message is opening your eyes, I want to ask you to write one sentence in the comments right now. Lord, search my heart and make it yours. Let that be your prayer today. Because what he showed me next was the system that's preparing the world to accept the mark without resistance. The next vision was more subtle, but more disturbing. Jesus showed me not wars or disasters, but screens, endless screens, phones, tablets, computers, TVs, people everywhere, children, parents, pastors, leaders, hypnotized by glowing rectangles, swiping, laughing, arguing, consuming, comparing, judging. But behind the screens, I saw chains of addiction, chains of fear, chains of identity built on digital approval. And softly, I heard the enemy whisper, "Keep them entertained, and they'll never notice the cage. Keep them entertained, and they'll never notice the cage." Jesus looked at me and said, "This is the system, not just technology, but ideology. A structure built to make hearts dull, minds numb, and spirits passive." I watched as ideas became truths without question. I saw how entertainment normalized sin, how media mocked holiness, how algorithms rewarded division and punished discernment. And slowly, millions began to surrender, not by threat, but by habit. They stopped asking what was true. They stopped reading the Word. They stopped hearing the voice of God. And the enemy smiled. Friends, this is how the world is being prepared, not by armies, but by influence, not by violence, but by distraction. Jesus said, "The mark begins with the molding. The mark is preceded by surrender, not to me, but to the world." If this is resonating in your spirit, take a bold step and write this in the comments. Jesus, break me free from this system. Speak it. Declare it. Because what he showed me next was how even trusted leaders are unknowingly spreading this deception. False security, deceived leaders, and silent churches. In the next moment, I was standing inside a massive church sanctuary. It was beautiful, Polished wood, stained glass, thousands of people lifting their hands, the band playing a powerful melody. Everything looked perfect. But Jesus whispered, "Watch closely." And that's when I noticed. The pastor preaching from the stage had a mark, faint, but there, not on his skin, but on his spirit. He was preaching hope, love, success, and prosperity, but never repentance, never truth, never my name in full authority. His words were like soft rain, comforting but empty, and the people were cheering. Jesus said, "They do not follow me. They follow a version of me that costs them nothing." Then he took me to another vision, a conference room full of spiritual leaders. They were discussing how to make sermons more relevant, how to avoid offending seekers, how to blend faith with the culture. But outside the glass walls of their meeting room, I saw darkness moving like fog across the land, and no one was watching it. No one was warning. They were inside, strategizing comfort. Jesus turned to me, and there were tears in his eyes. Real tears. Many of my shepherds have stopped guarding the flock. Instead, they entertain the wolves. I cried out, "Lord, what can we do?" He replied, "Sound the alarm, expose the counterfeit, and above all, live in truth. If you're watching this, I want you to be part of that alarm." Type in the comments right now. Jesus, awaken our leaders. Bring your fire back to the church. This deception is deep, but not unbreakable. And what I saw next showed me the line that will divide the world. I was standing on what looked like a long road that stretched into the horizon. On one side, there was light, not just brightness, but truth, pure, piercing. On the other side was shadow, not complete darkness, but grayness, subtle, comfortable, easy. Multitudes were walking toward the gray. They weren't running. They weren't being forced. They were choosing it because it felt familiar, safe, socially acceptable. Then I saw a narrow path, barely visible, winding toward the light. Few were walking it. Some looked uncertain. Others walked boldly, even with tears. They had dropped their phones, their idols, their reputations, even relationships, to stay on that path. And Jesus said, "This is what my people must choose. The mark is not a moment. It is a mindset, a loyalty, a love, either for me or for the system that rejects me." The gray path wasn't covered in demons or horror. It was covered in compromise. Just go with the flow. Don't be extreme. Love is love. Truth is relative. Don't judge. You can be spiritual without obedience. Each of those phrases appeared like glowing graffiti on the road to destruction, and Jesus spoke again. The Antichrist spirit is not coming. It is already at work, and the mark is the reward for loyalty to that kingdom. I saw families divided, Christians mocked, faithful ones called hateful, but the ones on the narrow road, their faces shone like fire. Jesus looked at me and said, "Tell them, I am not returning for a crowd. I am returning for a bride, holy, ready, and unmarked by this world." Friend, this is your moment. This is not about politics, not about culture. It's about eternity. Will you stand for him, even when it costs everything? If your answer is yes, then comment right now. I choose the narrow road. I belong to Jesus. Because the final vision Jesus gave me was both terrifying and victorious. The final vision hit me like a storm. I was standing in a battlefield, but there were no guns, no tanks, no blood. The weapons were words, beliefs, declarations. It was a war of the spirit, and the battleground was the soul of humanity. On one side, I saw a figure rise, elegant, charismatic, mesmerizing. He smiled as millions followed him. He promised peace, unity, love, but I could feel the lie beneath every word. Jesus said, "That is the one they will call the answer, but he is the counterfeit, the Antichrist spirit given flesh." The followers weren't forced, they were enchanted, because he echoed their desires, their fears, their ambitions, and they received his mark, not through fear, but through fascination. Then Jesus turned to me one last time and said, "Madeline, you must return now. They will not believe your story right away. Some will mock you. Some will twist your words. But some will hear me through you, and that is enough." I felt my spirit descend, like falling through layers of wind and light. My chest heaved, my eyes opened, monitors beeped, nurses gasped. I was back. But I wasn't the same. I woke, up with tears running down my face and a mission burning in my heart. Warn them. Wake them. Tell them the truth before it's too late. Conclusion. A message of hope and urgency. I'm not here to argue theology. I'm not here to debate symbolism or end times charts. I'm here because I died, and Jesus showed me what's already happening. And he's giving us one more chance, not just to prepare, but to awaken. You are being marked every day. Not by a device, but by your choices, your affections, your allegiance. If you feel the Holy Spirit stirring in your heart right now, don't ignore it. Don't wait for the big sign. This is the sign. Write in the comments, "Jesus, I choose you over this world." And if this message touched your heart, share it. Send it to someone asleep. Be the voice that breaks the silence, because the harvest is near and the time is short. Subscribe for more messages of truth, hope, and urgent faith. And never forget, Jesus is coming for a bride without compromise. Stay awake, stay ready, stay faithful.